And now I have the pleasure to invite Mr. Carlo Jereissati, CEO of Iguatemi Group, to take the floor.
So, good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to excuse myself. Although I can understand Italian, I am sure you won't understand my Italian if I try to speak in Italian. So, I'm Carlo Jereissati, CEO of Iguatemi now for more than 10 years. When I started our company, we have around 5 malls, premium malls. Now we'll be reaching, by 2014, around 20 malls. So you see that if I look a little bit tired, it's because we've been working a lot in the last few years. Brazil is growing a lot. You probably have heard from our friends, and I have the pleasure to try to explain, because I've seen that they've touched the social aspects and also the economic aspect. So somehow I will try to focus during my presentation more in the retail side and also the real estate, and how I think that the luxury business evolved in Brazil, and why malls, I believe, is the right place to be when you think of entering our country, especially in the luxury business. So I have a special agenda. We're talking a little bit. I think it's important to talk about South America. You know, although Brazil is the gateway for a region, it's important to talk a little bit about South America. The emerging middle class, which I think is really the base and the big transformation about Brazil. And you saw the numbers and really what is transforming Brazil, especially when you talk about the social questions. And also, like I mentioned, how I believe you can touch and reach the consumer base of Brazilians, especially the upper middle class, through the malls, and how you can locate yourself while in Brazil. Okay, so talking a little bit about South America, you know, South America is a region of 400 million people, and it's been growing in the last decade, especially. That I wanted to say, especially when you focus on South America, it's most or some of the South American countries, especially in the 90s, they did a lot of economic homework, especially Brazil, but it's true also for countries like Chile, Peru, and Colombia. So they kind of developed a market, and that's why in the last decade they have been growing more than other countries around the world. So creating an opportunity for brands to come to this market. Brazil itself, I think it's the most important case. Of course, it's the driving force, really the powerhouse when you think of South American region. Brazil, when you think about the luxury industry, we think about 5.4 billion euros. As Claudia mentioned, we include here not only some of the Brazilian brands, but also other sectors like automobile, wines, travel. And it will continue to grow in the next years. Last year it grew around 20%. It's expected to grow in the next 5 years around 10%. There's a lot of brands coming into the country, and that they're enlarging that base. Brazil is expected to continue to grow as a country for the next few years for at least 3 to 4%, especially because, like she mentioned, there's a lot of investment going on, especially infrastructure. Yes, Brazil is dependent on China in many cases, but with the growth of the domestic market is incredible because of the amount of investment. I think the big shift that happened in Brazil, especially last decade, is due to the stabilization and the privatization of many sectors. You create huge companies. You saw that there is a lot of billionaires in Brazil right now, and they have incredible and huge industries. And these industries are doing tremendous investment in Brazil and creating a lot of new jobs and a lot of new income that created this base of middle class that jumped from probably 40 million people to almost 100 million people, doubling in the last few decades, the last decade. Like Claudia mentioned, you know, we have 150,000 millionaires, which it's I think the 11th position around the world. I think it's significant when you think of the luxury market that these people are really, you know, when I mentioned that we have a new economy in terms of size, new companies that are really becoming global and very large, these companies have a lot of people working for them all over Brazil, and these people, and what they compound, the new middle class, the new upper middle class that is around that 11 million people, and also the millionaires that can, are the market and that creating this local market for luxury brands inside Brazil. I like to say, because I live in São Paulo, that São Paulo is almost like a country inside a country. If Brazil has 200 million people, São Paulo is 40 million people alone, the state of São Paulo. The city is 20 million. São Paulo, over the decades, became the financial center for the whole South America. It's really, all the main corporations that serve the entire South America have their headquarters, and really where the money and the luxury business is when you think of starting the luxury business in Brazil. So the big change, like I mentioned, is literally the creation of this base, this huge middle class that is almost half of the population of Brazil, 400 million, and the growth of the upper middle class as well, creating a local market for the luxury brands, not more a niche market, but really like a relevant market for those brands. Yeah, you can see in terms of numbers that we saw before, almost 100 million people nowadays in terms of middle class, 11 million people in terms of upper middle class, the number of millionaires, and even the billionaires list, which creates, a really strong market when you think of this special maisons that are coming to our country. Also, compounding with the growth of the income of people, you had in the last also decade the decrease of interest rates, creating a credit market that was not available for housing, for cars, and also for other type of products. That compounding those two, the income that is available in Brazil to really increase the purchasing power of the population is very impressive. Over 30 years of experience, Iguatemi is more than 30 years now as a company. We have learned how to touch the upper middle class in Brazil, and now this emerging middle class, and that's what I would like to share with you a little bit. Some of the points that I believe, like Paulo mentioned, would define somehow what is the unique aspects of the Brazilian customer. So there are 4 topics that I've touched, and I was pleased to see with Paulo that they really match what he was saying. Is first of all, Brazil, they're very seductive by nature. By nature, they talk about beauty. It's very important to us. I'll touch that point. We love creativity. You see that we're very open mind towards the future. There is this really appreciation for friendship and personal relationship. And also there's really lack relationship in terms of intimacy and closeness among Brazilians. First, it's very impressive because I remember I have at least one comment from Diane von Furstenberg, which I know for a long time as a friend, and she mentioned that Brazilians are the people who take more baths. They always smell very good, and they always take care of themselves. And it's very, very impressive. It really, because as a Brazilian, I've never paid attention to that. But over the time, as people start to mention, I realized that it's really something that, of course, exists around the world. But for a Brazilian, it's very important. Maybe there are many different reasons. We are 11 months country in terms of summer. We are always outdoor. People are they really take care about their visual appearance. When you think about women, it's amazing, how they think about beauty and how they treat themselves. If you visit Iguatemi, you see that we have a beauty salon that is 1,000 square meters. It makes more than 12 million euros a year, and it's always crowded, and you go there and see the beautiful ladies always take care of the hair, the looks, and it's really something that is very, very important to a Brazilian customer, to look well and to really impress. The other second aspect is we are a very young country, more 500 years old. Last year I was here I went to have a dinner at Palácio Esforça, and I look at the fireplace, and the house was older than Brazil. So the funny thing is, Brazilians, they're very open-minded. They're really early adopters of technology because pretty much people are looking forward. They have very little to look backward in terms of tradition. So they're always adopting something new. When you think about Facebook, Twitter, you're going to see that Brazil are top list and using all of these aspects. So when you think about communication strategies and all that, you have to think that this is a country that people really love technology and pushing into that direction and using that very well. In terms of, like I mentioned, the appreciation for friendship and personal relationship, there's a big idea of fit in, a really desire to be part of a group. Brazilians they really like to congregate. They really like to be part of things. That's why you would see that the amount of events or the high attendance that people attend events, it's really impressive. Just to give an idea of ourselves, inside our malls, we have event spaces because, and that's another thing that I want to touch. I mean, due to our way retail developed in Brazil, there was no department store in our country, mainly because of the inflation. Interest rates were always high. It was very difficult to set up a very big format. So what we may have is the shops, where people really go for shopping. And but with that, the malls in Brazil, they kind of play the role like department stores, especially when you think of the luxury aspect. So we are the ones who are always doing a lot of events together with the brands in order to be able to bring, the celebrities or art events into the mall, so to create that kind of feeling, that kind of connection that are very important to connect the customer with the brand. There's the way we consume luxury is very, very interesting because it's I think by bringing the international brands to Brazil, it's a way to Brazilians feel updated and connected to the world. So even though Brazilians shop abroad, they are very proud of having the brands inside their country, and the more they have the brands inside the country, they become even more consumers when they travel, because they are connected to their brand locally, and that's very important. For another aspect that is very important, that especially because you all talked about the high duties that we have and the price point that the merchandise reaches for the customer, that service is very, very important in Brazil. Customers really think of the associate as a friend. You really have to treat him well. You really have to be close to them. And it's very important aspect that when you train your people to have a store, then you have to see that it's a great connection to the customer. Saying that, it's impressive throughout the years and in our own experience that we've learned by touching base with this Brazilian customer, that malls are really became like the meeting point for all those people. Especially because when brands were coming to Brazil, and that I have my own experience, and I started to work more than 15 years ago, and our first opportunity we had to touch base with an international brand was with Vuitton, and in the beginning they really wanted to be inside in the streets. And we had to explain, in Brazil, our cities were designed for cars. We are young cities. It's not like a European city designed inside the walls that have a fantastic transportation that you can walk everywhere. You had the safety issue that was touched here. People feel safe in an environment that they know it's controlled and all of that. So customers, even high profile customers, they will shop inside the malls. And then over these last 10 years, people understand that, the big shift, and then how malls play like a platform that serve all these issues and create a great environment for the customer. So the first aspect is really this 360 platform that we call. We at a mall can provide this meeting point for people to connect with each other, and also connect with the brands. The other aspect is, when you have all this base customers that are improving, but they need to learn. It's not not because they maybe hear of the brand and or whatever. They know and have the knowledge of what the brand really represents. And I think we at Iguatemi, we always try to play the role like a curators or educators of the customer profile, especially the ones who were touching base with brands, because it's not only the 11 million people that are now the upper scale, because if you think of the billionaires and millionaires, they know the brands forever. But if you think of this emerging upper middle class, but also the emerging middle class, that is a very important customer, that is aspirational, that is learning about the brand. We try to somehow create a lot of events, a lot of opportunities for them to touch base with the brand and learn locally about the brand and become a customer. That's what is really pushing most of the brands who are in Brazil and growing into impressive numbers, because these are the people who are experimenting for the first time these brands and really becoming customers. We do that not only through events, but also for various personal service. Like I mentioned, because we never developed department stores in Brazil to many reasons, malls, especially like these luxurious malls like we have in São Paulo, we try to provide in all the aspects that we were able to see in Harrods or in Bergdorf and Barney's around the world, things like personal shoppers, concierge, lounge, all those places that will serve the more upscale customer and create this atmosphere that people will really rely and be invited to come and really shop in a proper way. So I think that's how we learn over time to connect our base customers, especially. Another thing that I always wanted to reinforce when I meet with international retailers, especially the luxury brands. I mean, countries have particular ways. I mean, Brazilians were never always, they're getting rich, they're getting better in terms of income. But, people feel very comfortable, and Claudia talked about being casual. So, when you see this room, it is here for 500 years, I don't know. So this is, impressive, this is fantastic. Think of a country that is 500 years old, have no rooms like this, that people are much less formal in a way, much more casual, because they are not raised in castles and palaces and all things like that. That's why I said they're more. So the reason when you touch base with them, you have to understand that it's fairly normal to us to be in a place where you have international luxury brands among Brazilian brands and some of like a middle brands. It's not like you're going to go into a place and you would be totally segmented. If you go too high, you may lose this upper middle class or middle class that is coming, and you would be unfriendly to them, and you create an obstacle rather than an access to them. So it's very important to understand when you move into a country that is learning, that somehow you facilitate that thing, and that's our belief. So when you visit our malls, you're going to see that there is this type of competition. We try to create a friendly environment with all the sophistication, but we try to match that in a proper way, and the evolution must be natural, so you don't make people afraid of coming and learning and being customers for the brands, luxury brands inside Brazil. So these are some of the fashion Italian brands who represent Brazil for now. Some of them are in our malls. In Iguatemi, some of them are entering the new mall. The JK project is a new mall that we're opening in April. We are very glad. I think Italian brands, Italians match very well with Brazilians, especially São Paulo, which I think it's half of our city is Italian. So you can imagine the connection of values and history that we have together. So I think all of them are being great. The ones who are there are a big success, and the ones who are coming for sure, I think they will be a great success. So thank you. It was a pleasure having this opportunity.
I would like to thank Carlos for his keynote speech that has been very interesting.